His rotors beat against the Afghan sky like a war drum, kicking up clouds of tan dust that swallowed everything. Staff Sergeant Maya Torres gripped her custom rifle as the helicopter descended toward Forward Operating Base Atlas, a collection of tan structures and concrete barriers carved into the hostile mountains like a scar. She'd trained for this moment for 8 years, 2 tours in Iraq, top graduate from sniper school, a confirmed kill record that made senior officers take notice. But none of that mattered when you were the new gun walking into someone else's war. The wheels touched down hard. Maya grabbed her gear and jumped into the rotor wash, squinting against the stinging sand. The landscape was brutal, jagged peaks that looked like broken teeth, valleys perfect for ambushes, and heat that felt like standing inside an oven. This was where careers were made or bodies were sent home. Sergeant First Class stood at the landing zone like a statue carved from granite and bad attitude. 6'2", barrel-chested, with a face weathered by a decade of combat. His sleeves were rolled tight over forearms that looked like they could bend steel. 3 tours, 17 confirmed kills, a silver star pinned to his record. He was a legend here, and he knew it. Behind him stood his team, 5 operators who looked like they'd been forged in the same fire. They watched Maya approach with the kind of cold assessment soldiers reserve for anything that might get them killed. His eyes locked onto Maya's rifle before they ever met her face. It was beautiful in its functionality, a heavily modified M2010 draped in matte black, fitted with a custom barrel, an advanced scope that cost more than most cars, a specialized suppressor, and a stock adjusted to her exact specifications. Every modification served a purpose, calculated through thousands of hours of ballistic research and field testing. To Maya, it was precision engineering. To traditionalists it looked like heresy. "That your weapon, Torres?" His voice carried across the landing zone, loud enough for everyone to hear. Maya stopped 3 feet away and snapped a salute. "Yes, Sergeant," Staff Sergeant Maya Torres reporting as ordered. He didn't return the salute immediately, letting her arm hang in the air just long enough to make a point. When he finally raised his hand, it was slow, dismissive. "At ease." He circled her like a shark examining wounded prey, his eyes dissecting every inch of her rifle. "What in the hell am I looking at here? This some kind of art project?" "Custom modifications for extreme-range precision, Sergeant. Extended barrel for increased muzzle velocity, custom-tuned." "I didn't ask for the technical manual." He stopped directly in front of her, close enough that she could smell the gun oil and sweat. "I asked what the hell you think you're doing bringing a science experiment to a combat zone." Laughter rippled through his team. One of them, a lanky corporal with a crooked nose, whispered just loud enough to be heard. "Looks like something from a video game." Maya's jaw tightened, but her voice remained level. "It's got a proven track record, Sergeant. 1,700-meter confirmed kill in Iraq. Multiple engagements beyond standard effective range." "Iraq," smile was predatory. "Sweetie, this ain't Iraq. These mountains eat shooters like you for breakfast. You know what wins firefights here. Experience, discipline, trust. Not fancy toys and modifications that'll jam the first time dust gets in them." He reached out and tapped the scope with one thick finger. "In my unit, we use standard-issue equipment, proven equipment, not whatever Frankenstein gun you ordered off the internet." More laughter. Maya felt heat crawling up her neck, but she kept her face blank. She'd been here before, different deserts, same doubt. "You'll fall in with standard operating procedures, use standard positions, and follow standard doctrine. You understand me, Torres?" "Yes, Sergeant." "Good," he turned to his team. "Get her settled, briefings at 1900 hours. Then, almost as an afterthought, try not to break that toy before you get a chance to actually use it." As he walked away, his team following like disciples, Maya stood in the swirling dust, alone with her rifle and her resolve. Corporal approached cautiously, younger than the others, maybe 23, with honest eyes that hadn't quite hardened yet. "Don't take it personal," he said quietly. "Sarge is hard on everyone at first." Maya adjusted her rifle strap, her eyes following his retreating form. "He can be as hard as he wants. I didn't come here to make friends." "Then why'd you come?" She looked at the mountains, at the hostile peaks where enemies hid and legends were born, and smiled. A small, dangerous smile. "To show them what this toy can do." Pre-dawn air was cold enough to burn Maya's lungs as team moved through the mountain pass like wolves on a hunt. 6 operators spread in tactical formation, weapons ready, eyes scanning every rock and shadow. This was Indian country, enemy territory where one mistake meant a firefight or worse. Maya had been assigned to rear security, the least critical position, the slot you gave to someone you didn't trust. She said nothing, just moved where she was told, her Frankenstein gun steady in her hands. Through her advanced scope, the world came alive in crystal clarity. Every ridge, every cave entrance, every potential kill zone painted in sharp detail that standard optics couldn't match. 4 hours into the patrol, they reached between 2 cliff faces. Raised his fist, the team froze. He studied the terrain through his binoculars, then radioed. Clear, move through, stay tight. But Maya's scope told a different story. Northeast ridge 1,400 meters out. Heat signatures barely visible in the rocks. 3, no, 4 shapes moving with the deliberate patience of trained fighters. Sunlight glinted off metal. Weapons. They were being watched, being measured, waiting for the perfect ambush point. Contact, Maya whispered into her radio. Northeast ridge 1,400 meters. 4 hostiles, elevated position. Static, then's irritated voice. I don't see anything, Tors. You sure you're not seeing shadows? Negative, Sergeant. I have positive identification. They're tracking us. Through her peripheral vision, she saw raise his binoculars again, scanning the ridge with standard magnification. My optics show nothing. Probably goat herders. Stay focused on your sector. Sergeant, they're armed. I can see. I said maintain your sector, Staff Sergeant. We don't engage civilians on maybes. Maya's finger moved to her trigger guard. Every instinct screamed danger. The enemy fighters were repositioning, moving to a better angle. They knew the team was in the kill zone. They were waiting for everyone to bunch up. 30 seconds of excruciating silence. The team moved forward into the narrows, exactly where the ambush would be most devastating. Then the world exploded. Muzzle flashes erupted from the ridge. Bullets cracked through the air like deadly hail, ricocheting off rocks, kicking up dust geysers. The team scattered, diving for cover, returning fire at an enemy they could barely see. But Maya had never lost sight of them. Her rifle was already aimed, her breathing already controlled, her calculations already complete. She squeezed the trigger. The first hostile dropped, his weapon clattering down the rocks. Adjust. Fire. The second crumpled. The remaining 2 tried to relocate, but at 1,400 meters with her custom setup, they moved in slow motion through her scope. Third shot, fourth shot, both targets neutralized. The entire engagement lasted 18 seconds. The sudden silence was deafening. Cease fire, shouted, sound off. Everyone reported in, shaken but unharmed, scrambled up a boulder to survey the ridge through his binoculars. 4 bodies lay motionless among the rocks, weapons scattered around them. Jesus breathed beside Maya. You got all 4. She was already clearing her weapon, heart still pounding. Someone had to. The team regrouped, rattled but alive. Moved between his men, checking for injuries, his jaw working like he was chewing gravel. He glanced at Maya once, a look she couldn't quite read, then turned away. 6 hours later, back at Fob Atlas, Maya sat in the debriefing room listening to brief Colonel Hayes. Textbook ambush scenario, sir. Enemy fighters attempted to engage us in a narrow pass. The team maintained discipline, utilized cover effectively, and neutralized the threat through superior tactical positioning and fire discipline. No mention of Maya's warning. No mention of her killing all 4 targets while everyone else was scrambling for cover. Colonel Hayes nodded, impressed. Outstanding work, Sergeant. Your team's performance continues to exceed expectations. Just doing our job, sir. Maya stared at the table, her hands clasped tight enough to hurt. That night in the armory, she found holding court with his team, their laughter echoing off the concrete walls. He had her rifle in his hands, turning it over like a museum curiosity. Look at this thing, he announced. Custom scope probably costs 10 grand, fancy barrel, special suppressor. He mimicked a video game voice. Level up your weapon with these sick mods. His team roared with laughter. Next, you'll want to mount a laser pointer and some racing stripes, the crooked-nosed corporal added. More laughter. Maya stood in the doorway, unseen in the shadows, watching them mock the weapon that had saved their lives hours earlier. Set the rifle down with exaggerated care. I give it a week before something breaks and she's begging for standard issue. Maya turned and walked away silently, their laughter following her into the dark. In her quarters, she field-stripped her rifle with methodical precision, cleaning each component, checking each modification, her movements sharp with controlled anger. On her bunk lay a notebook filled with calculations, ballistic charts, and wind readings. She added a new entry: 4 confirmed kills, 1,400 meters, 18 seconds, 0 recognition. Then below it, words are cheap, results are forever, let them laugh, I'll let the rifle talk. Tomorrow was another patrol, another chance, and Maya Torres had only begun to prove what impossible really meant. The briefing room smelled like stale coffee and tension. Every seat was filled with operators, intelligence officers, and senior command staff. The overhead lights cast harsh shadows across weathered faces as Colonel Hayes stood at the front, his expression grim. "Gentleman and lady," he nodded to Maya, "we've got a priority target." The projector flickered to life. A grainy photograph appeared, a bearded man in his 50s with cold, intelligent eyes, the kind of eyes that had watched men die and felt nothing. Commander, former Afghan army, turned insurgent leader. For the past 8 months, he's coordinated every major attack in this sector. 12 KIA, 37 wounded, all his handiwork. Hayes clicked to the next slide, a compound nestled in brutal mountain terrain. Intel confirms he'll be here in 72 hours for a meeting with regional cell leaders. Maya leaned forward, her eyes devouring every detail of the topographical map. The compound sat in a valley bowl, surrounded by elevated positions, a fortress of natural defense. Her mind was already calculating angles, distances, vulnerabilities. Hayes continued, "This is our one shot, rarely surfaces and never in a location this exposed. We miss this window, he disappears for another 6 months." "What's the plan, sir?" asked, already leaning over the map with the confidence of a man who'd run 100 missions. "That's what we're here to determine." Hayes pointed to various positions around the compound. "Let's hear options." His finger stabbed at a ridge 1,200 meters northeast of the target. "Here, standard overwatch position. Good cover, multiple routes, well within effective range for a confirmed kill. My team inserts at night, sets up, takes the shot when he shows." Heads nodded around the room. It was solid, proven tactics. But Maya's eyes were locked on a different position, a distant that looked like a knife blade cutting the sky. "Sir," she said quietly, "there's another option." The room turned, its eyes narrowed. Maya stood and walked to the map, her finger tracing a route to the far. "This position, due west of the compound." The intelligence officer checked his laptop. "That's, Staff Sergeant, that's 3,800 meters from the target." 3,847 meters, actually. Maya's voice was steady. "But it offers advantages. The sun will be at our backs, target will be backlit during afternoon hours. No enemy patrols in that sector according to reconnaissance. And most importantly, they'll never expect a shot from that range." Silence crashed through the room like a physical force. Then laughed a sharp, bitter sound. 3,800 meters, are you serious right now?" "Completely serious, Sergeant." He stood, shaking his head in disbelief. "The world record confirmed kill is 3,540 meters, made by a British sniper with a team of spotters, perfect conditions, and a stationary target. You want to exceed that in combat conditions in these mountains." He turned to the room. "This isn't a video game. This isn't a shooting range. This is real life." "I've run the calculations," Maya said, pulling out her notebook filled with equations and ballistic charts. "With current atmospheric conditions, temperature variables, and accounting for." "Calculations?" cut her off. "You want to bet American lives on calculations, sir?" He turned to Colonel Hayes. "This is exactly what I was worried about. She's been here 1 week and she thinks she can rewrite the rules of physics." Maya's jaw tightened. "I'm not rewriting physics, I'm applying it." "You're applying fantasy." Stepped closer, his voice dropping to a deadly calm. "Let me tell you what happens at 3,800 meters. The bullet drop is astronomical. Wind drift becomes unpredictable. Temperature changes mid-flight affect trajectory. A single degree of miscalculation means missing by yards, not inches. And when you miss, because you will miss, escapes, our position is compromised and good soldiers die cleaning up your mess." "I won't miss." "You can't guarantee that." "Neither can you at 1,200 meters, Maya fired back. "Your position has approached routes that enemy patrols use. You'll be within their security perimeter. One guard looks the wrong direction, one dog catches your scent, and the whole mission collapses. The room watched the confrontation like a tennis match. Colonel Hayes raised his hand. Enough, both of you. He studied the map, his expression unreadable. The silence stretched for 30 agonizing seconds. Position is primary, he finally said. Maya's heart sank. It's proven doctrine, and I won't gamble everything on an untested theory. Smirk was subtle but present. However, Hayes turned to Maya, you'll take your position as contingency. If shot is compromised for any reason, you're our backup. Sir, with all respect, started. My decision is final, Sergeant. Hayes's voice carried the weight of command. Tors, prepare your impossible shot. Just pray we never need it. He looked around the room. 72 hours, people. Mission brief at 600 day after tomorrow. Dismissed. As everyone filed out, stopped beside Maya, his voice low enough only she could hear. You better hope I make my shot, Tors. Because when you fail yours, I'll make damn sure everyone knows who almost got us killed. Maya met his eyes without flinching. Maybe you should hope I get mine, because if you fail, I'm the only thing standing between and freedom. He walked away, shaking his head. Approached cautiously. You really think you can make that shot? Maya gathered her notes, her hands steady despite the adrenaline still coursing through her veins. She looked at the map one more time, that distant ridge, that impossible distance. I don't think, Corporal, I calculate, and the math says yes. And if the math is wrong? She smiled, but there was steel behind it. Then I guess we'll find out just how impossible really is. Maya's quarters transformed into something between a mathematics laboratory and a war room. Papers covered every surface. Ballistic trajectory charts, wind speed tables, atmospheric pressure calculations, temperature gradient models. Her laptop displayed satellite imagery of the target area, while a second screen ran ballistic simulation software that recalculated variables every few seconds. She'd slept 4 hours in the past 2 days. Corporal stood in the doorway, watching her work with a mixture of awe and concern. Staff Sergeant, you've been at this for 36 hours straight. Can't stop now. Maya's pencil flew across a fresh sheet of paper, her handwriting a controlled scrawl of numbers and formulas. Temperature will drop 15 degrees between insertion and the shot window. That changes bullet velocity by 43 feet per second, which alters the trajectory by, she paused, calculating, 6.2 inches at distance. Stepped inside, closing the door behind him. I've never seen anyone prepare like this. That's because most people don't attempt the impossible. She crossed to a detailed topographical map thumbtacked to the wall, covered in colored markings and annotations. At 3,847 meters, the bullet will be in flight for approximately 8.4 seconds. In that time, I have to account for. She started ticking off on her fingers. Bullet drop of 462 inches. Wind drift currently calculating 12 knots crosswind, but mountain valleys create unpredictable eddies. Effect, the Earth's rotation will drift the round 6 inches right at this latitude. Air density decreases with altitude, affecting drag coefficient. Temperature affects powder burn rate. Humidity changes air resistance. Jesus whispered, how do you account for all that? Very carefully. Maya pulled up a spreadsheet showing hundreds of variables. I've created a model incorporating real-time weather data, historical wind patterns for that valley at different times of day, altitude compensation, even the angle of the sun affecting thermal currents. Leaned over her shoulder, studying the complex equations. This is... Staff Sergeant, I've been a spotter for 3 years. I've never seen anyone calculate effect for a field shot. Most people don't need to. They're not shooting 4 kilometers. The door burst open, filled the frame, his face flushed with anger. What the hell are you doing here? Helping Staff Sergeant Tors prepare Sergeant. Helping her waste time, you mean? Stepped inside, his eyes sweeping over the chaos of calculations with open disdain. This looks like a college physics project, not a combat op. Maya didn't look up from her calculations. Physics doesn't care about your opinion, Sergeant. No, but dead soldiers care about failed shots. He grabbed one of her chart papers, holding it up. You really think all this math is going to work when you're cold, tired, and staring at a target the size of a postage stamp? I think preparation increases probability of success. Probability, crumpled the paper and tossed it aside. Maya's jaw clenched. War isn't about probability, it's about certainty, experience, trusting your training and your weapon, not trusting a calculator. My training is mathematics, my weapon is precision. Maya finally looked up, her eyes blazing. You rely on instinct because that's what worked for you. I rely on science because that's what works for me. Your science is going to get people killed. Stepped between them. Sarge, she's accounted for variables I didn't even know existed. She's calculated wind drift at 3 different altitude bands, temperature inversions, even the spin drift from the barrel's rifling. I don't care if she's calculated the meaning of life. His voice rose. This is ego talking, not tactics. She wants to be a hero, make the impossible shot, prove the old guard wrong. And when it fails, and it will fail, walks and our mission becomes a footnote in failed operations. Maya stood slowly, her 5'6" frame still somehow commanding in the small room. You think this is about ego? You think I'm doing this for glory? What else could it be? It's about being ready. Her voice dropped to something cold and precise. You're right that your position is better tactically. You should make that shot. This, she gestured at her calculations, is what I do if you can't, if your position is compromised, if weather changes, if anything goes wrong. I'm not trying to steal your glory. I'm trying to save the mission if your glory fails. The room fell silent except for the hum of her laptop fan. Stared at her for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then, when this mission is over and you've failed, I'll make sure everyone knows. Your rifle, your modifications, your fancy calculations, all of it will be exposed as the dangerous fantasy it is. And when I succeed, he laughed harsh and bitter, you won't. He turned to leave, then paused at the door. You're my spotter, you work for me, not her. Sir, I'm assigned as her spotter for the contingency position. Then I guess you better pray we don't need the contingency, because when her shot fails and escapes, that failure is on you too. He walked out, his boots echoing down the corridor. Exhaled slowly. He really doesn't believe in you. No, Maya agreed, returning to her calculations. But he will. She picked up the crumpled paper had thrown, smoothed it out carefully, and pinned it back to the wall. Every calculation mattered. Every variable counted. At 3,847 meters, there was no room for error. And Maya Torres didn't make errors. Watched her work in the dim light. This soldier who measured war in mathematics, who saw impossibility as just another problem to solve. You really think you can do this? He asked quietly. Maya's pencil never stopped moving. In 36 hours, we'll know if impossible is just a word, or if it's the distance between proving them wrong and proving them right. She circled a final number on her chart, 3,847 meters. The math said yes. Now she just had to make the shot. The cut through darkness at dangerously low altitude, hugging the mountain contours like a shadow with rotors. Inside, 12 operators sat in tense silence, faces painted black, weapons locked and loaded. The red cabin lights made everyone look like ghosts. Maya checked her rifle for the 100th time. Every modification, every adjustment, every calculation had led to this moment. Beside her, reviewed their equipment, rangefinder, wind meter, spotting scope, emergency repelling gear. The climb to their position would be brutal. 5 minutes, the crew chief shouted over the rotor noise. His voice crackled through the headset. Primary team, final equipment check. We insert first, move to our position. Should be set up in 90 minutes. A pause. Contingency team, try not to fall off the mountain. A few chuckles from his squad. Maya's expression didn't change. The helicopter flared hard, hovering 3 feet above a rocky outcrop. Go, go, go. His team fast roped down in perfect sequence. Professional, efficient, disappearing into the darkness within seconds. The lifted banked hard and repositioned 1,000 meters west. Contingency team, you're up. Maya dropped onto the cold stone right behind her. The helicopter's downdraft nearly knocked them flat, then it was gone, disappearing into the night sky, the sound fading to nothing. Silence crashed over them like a physical weight. They were alone on a barren mountain at 200 hours, with a 4-kilometer climb ahead and an impossible shot waiting at the end. Move, Maya whispered. The ascent was hell. The terrain was a nightmare of loose scree, vertical rock faces, and slopes that crumbled under their boots. Maya's rifle, over 20 pounds with ammunition, became an anchor dragging her backward. carried the spotting equipment, an additional 40 pounds of gear that made every step a battle against gravity. 30 minutes in, Maya's lungs burned like she was breathing fire. Sweat soaked through her gear despite the freezing temperature. Her legs screamed, but she pushed forward one brutal step at a time. "Primary team in position," his voice came through the radio, barely winded. "Target building is clear, no movement, we're set up nice and comfortable here." Glanced at Maya. She was too focused on not falling to respond. An hour into the climb, they hit a near-vertical section. Maya wedged her boots into cracks, hauling herself up with raw arm strength, her rifle banging against her back. Below, 100-foot drop waited in the darkness. One slip meant death. "You good?" called up. "Keep climbing," she gasped. 2 hours and 40 minutes after insertion, they crested the... Maya collapsed onto the rocks, chest heaving, muscles shaking. Dropped beside her, sucking air like a drowning man. "Jesus Christ," he panted. Maya forced herself up, no time for weakness. She pulled out her night vision scope and surveyed the valley below. There, the compound, impossibly distant, barely visible even with magnification. A few lights glowed like distant stars. "We're here," she radioed. "Congratulations," his voice dripped sarcasm. "Only took you 3 hours to climb to a position you'll never use. Meanwhile, we've got perfect line of sight, perfect cover, perfect everything. But hey, enjoy the view from your mountain." Maya ignored him. She was already unpacking her rifle, hands moving with practiced precision despite exhaustion. Range the compound. Distance, 3,847 meters, confirmed. "Holy hell," he breathed. "I can barely see it even through the scope." Maya extended the bipod, positioning the rifle on a flat rock she'd identified in satellite imagery. Every movement was deliberate, methodical. She pulled out her wind flags, strips of lightweight fabric on thin poles, and placed them at intervals to read air movement. The wind was picking up, 12 knots gusting to 15, not ideal. She adjusted her scope's parallax, checked the level bubble, confirmed her 0. Then she pulled out her notebook, cross-referencing current conditions with her calculations. Temperature is 42 degrees, humidity 63%, barometric pressure 28.8 and falling. Read instruments while Maya made microscopic adjustments to her scope turrets. Wind is shifting, variable between 11 and 16 knots coming from northwest. Maya's mind raced through calculations. The shifting wind was a nightmare variable. At this distance, a 2-knot change meant a 6-inch impact shift. She pulled out strips of surveyor's tape and tied them to rocks at different elevations, creating a vertical wind profile. The flags danced differently at each height. The wind was layered, complex, unpredictable. "This is going to be difficult," said quietly. "Everything worthwhile is." Maya settled behind her rifle, adjusting the stock to her cheek, feeling the familiar fit. Through the scope, the compound looked like a toy village in the distance, shimmering in the night vision green. She began reading the wind, watching the flags, noting the patterns, the lulls, the gusts. At 3,847 meters, the bullet would pass through multiple wind layers. She needed to understand each one. An hour passed, then 2. The sky began to lighten, deep purple giving way to dark blue. Shivered beside her, target scheduled to arrive in 45 minutes. Maya never took her eye from the scope. She was in the zone now, that place where cold didn't matter, exhaustion didn't exist, doubt couldn't reach. There was only the rifle, the wind, the mathematics, and the target. "Contingency team status," command's voice on the radio. "In position," Maya replied. "Ready." "Copy, primary team has priority. Maintain overwatch." "Roger." The sun crept over the eastern peaks, painting the valley in shades of gold and shadow. The compound came into sharper focus. Maya could see guards moving, vehicles parked, a flag hanging limp in the morning stillness. His voice, "We've got movement. Vehicles approaching from the south. Could be our guy." Maya's finger moved to her trigger guard. "Not yet, just ready." Pressed his eye to the spotting scope. "I see them, 3 vehicles, convoy formation." The waiting was the hardest part. Every muscle tight, every sense screaming. The world reduced to breathing, heartbeat, and that impossible distance. 3,847 meters. The bullet would take 8.4 seconds to arrive. In 8.4 seconds, everything would change. Maya exhaled slowly, her breath misting in the cold mountain air, and waited for the world to give her the shot that everyone said was impossible. Through her scope, Maya watched the convoy roll into the compound like pieces on a chessboard. 3 armored SUVs, dust trailing behind them, guards scrambling to positions. The morning sun painted everything in sharp relief. No shadows to hide in, no darkness to forgive mistakes. "Multiple vehicles entering compound," reported, his voice steady despite the tension. "Counting, 15 personnel heavily armed." Maya's crosshairs drifted across faces too distant to identify clearly. At 3,847 meters, even with her advanced optics, people looked like moving shadows. She tracked movements, patterns, behaviors, waiting for the one face that mattered. His voice cut through the radio. "Primary team has visual on target. Commander confirmed. He's exiting the middle vehicle, surrounded by 4 bodyguards, moving toward the main building." Maya found him in her scope, a tall figure in traditional dress, moving with the confidence of a man who believed himself untouchable. Her finger rested alongside the trigger guard. Not her shot. Not yet. "Primary team has the shot," continued. "Target is moving to the northwest corner of the compound. Wind is calm, perfect conditions." A pause loaded with satisfaction. "Preparing to engage in 60 seconds." Glanced at Maya. She remained motionless, a statue carved from concentration. 30 seconds, stopped beside a parked truck speaking with a subordinate. The perfect target stationary, exposed, unaware. 20 seconds, would be controlling his breathing, settling his crosshairs, beginning the trigger squeeze. 10 seconds. Then the world exploded into chaos. Contact left, contact left." His voice shattered across the radio, professional calm replaced by combat urgency. "We've got enemy patrol 50 meters and closing. They've spotted our position." Gunfire erupted, the distinctive crack of AK-47s mixing with the deeper boom of American M4s. Shouts in Pashto, grenades detonating, the carefully planned ambush collapsing into a firefight. Through her scope, Maya watched the compound erupt like a kicked anthill. Guards scattered, weapons raised, scanning for threats. Bodyguards rushed him toward the armored vehicle. "Primary team is compromised." His voice fought through the sound of gunfire. "Taking heavy fire, we have to displace." "Negative," command's voice cut in. "Hold position and complete the shot." "Sir, we've got 20+ hostiles converging on our position. If we don't move now..." An explosion cut him off. "Grenade, fall back, fall back." Maya watched sprint toward the vehicle, his window of vulnerability closing with every second. In moments, he'd be behind armor, untouchable, gone. "All units, primary team is displacing under fire," command transmitted, tension cracking through his professional tone. "Target is mobile and moving to vehicle." His voice was tight. "He's running, 20 seconds to vehicle." 15 seconds, was 15 feet from safety. "Tors," command's voice cracked like a whip. "You're the only shot. Do you have the target?" Maya's world narrowed. The firefight faded. The chaos disappeared. There was only the scope, the target, the impossible mathematics of 3,847 meters. "I have eyes on target," she said, her voice ice-calm despite her hammering heart. "Engaging," desperate voice. "I'm taking the shot." His rifle cracked in the distance, a futile gesture from a team in full retreat. Through her scope, Maya saw dirt kick up 30 meters behind. A running shot from a moving position through chaos. It never had a chance. 10 seconds to the vehicle. "Tors, you are cleared hot," command ordered. "Take the shot." "Negative's voice ragged with desperation and pride. "The range is impossible. Request air support, we need." "Air support is 15 minutes out," command cut him off. "Tors is the only option. TORRES engage." 5 seconds. His hand touched the vehicle door. His voice quiet beside her. Wind shifted, 14 knots gusting 16, northwest. Range 3,847 meters, moving target maximum difficulty. He paused. "This is impossible." Maya's breathing slowed. Her heart rate dropped. The shaking in her hands, the exhaustion, the cold, the 3-hour climb, all of it vanished into absolute focus. Her mind became a computer processing variables at light speed. Bullet drop, 462 inches. Wind drift, variable. Compensate for 38 inches right +6 for gusts. Effect 6 inches right. Target movement, Running stride, predict 2 feet forward. Bullet flight time, 8.4 seconds. Temperature drop to 39 degrees. Adjust powder burn. Altitude 8,200 feet. Thin air, less resistance. Earth's rotation, accounted for. Scope can't, level bubble centered. Mirage, heat shimmer rising from valley floor. Read it, use it. 3 seconds, pulled the door open. Through the chaos of automatic weapons, fire crackling over the radio. Through team fighting for their lives. Through command's desperate orders, Maya Torres made her choice. She stopped breathing. Her finger moved to the trigger. The world held its breath. "I have the shot," she whispered. 2 seconds, started to climb into the vehicle. His voice was barely audible. "Send it." Maya's entire existence compressed into a single moment. 8 years of training, thousands of hours of calculations, every doubt and every insult, all of it crystallizing into this impossible instant. The target paused, one heartbeat of stillness. 1 foot on the running board, 1 hand on the door frame, his body exposed for a fraction of a second longer. Maya squeezed the trigger. The world would never be the same. Crack. The rifle's report shattered the mountain silence like breaking glass. The recoil punched Maya's shoulder. Familiar, honest, final. The bullet left the barrel at 2,950 feet per second, spinning at 280,000 revolutions per minute, beginning its journey across an impossible distance. Maya didn't move, didn't breathe. Her eye remained welded to the scope, tracking. The bullet flew. Second 1, the round climbed, fighting gravity, slicing through the thin mountain air. Wind caught it, 12 knots becoming 14, becoming 16 in unpredictable gusts. The bullet drifted right, exactly as Maya had calculated, compensated for, prayed for. Through the radio, did she shoot? Did Torres take the shot? Voice, distant, fighting through gunfire. Second 2, the bullet reached its apex, beginning the long descent. Temperature differences created invisible rivers of air, thermals rising from the warming valley floor, cold layers at altitude. The round navigated them all, its trajectory a mathematical prayer written in copper and lead. Sai was locked to the spotting scope, his breath held, watching the target through the shimmering distance. Flight time, tracking. Second 3 was moving, climbing into the vehicle. His bodyguard shouted something, a warning, an order. The door was half closed. In another second, he'd be gone, swallowed by armor and failure. Maya's mind tracked the bullet's flight path like she was riding it. Wind compensation, 38 inches right. Drop, 462 inches. Drift, 6 inches. All the mathematics, all the midnight calculations, all the doubt, everything compressed into a copper-jacketed projectile screaming through space at nearly 3 times the speed of sound. Second 4, midpoint. The bullet had traveled nearly 2 kilometers, still maintaining enough velocity to kill. But velocity was bleeding away with every meter. Air resistance, friction, physics demanding its toll. "She's insane," someone whispered over the radio. "That range is impossible." Second 5, the bullet dropped below the sound barrier with a faint crack no one would hear. Transonic instability threatened to tumble the round, but the custom barrel's rifling held true. The bullet stabilized, continued, falling like a guided stone toward destiny. Maya's hands were carved from ice. Her breathing was suspended in time. Through the scope she watched, still visible, still exposed, still alive. The universe balanced on the edge of a bullet. Second 6, 3/4 of the journey complete. The compound grew larger in the bullet's path, guards running, weapons raised, chaos spreading. But none of them looked up. None of them imagined death arriving from 4 kilometers away. His voice cracked, impact in 3, 2. Second 7, the bullet entered the final 1,000 meters. All the variables, wind, temperature, gravity, hope, converged into a single trajectory. Maya had calculated for this exact moment. The wind had shifted exactly as her models predicted. The temperature drop matched her charts. The mathematics were perfect. But perfect wasn't always enough. Second 8 ducked to enter the vehicle. His bodyguard reached for the door. Time moved like honey, thick and slow. The bullet covered the final 100 meters, dropping fast, wind pushed right, spinning, falling, seeking. Maya's lips moved in silent calculation, prayer and promise combined. 8.4 seconds. The bullet arrived. Through spotting scope, the world crystallized into a single moment of absolute clarity. The round struck in the upper chest, precisely where Maya had aimed, compensating for his movement, his breathing, his fate. The impact snapped him backward, away from the vehicle, away from safety, away from every future attack he'd planned. He collapsed onto the dusty ground and didn't move. For one eternal heartbeat, the universe was silent. Then's voice shattered the spell. Impact, confirmed impact, target down. The radio exploded with voices, shocked, disbelieving, electrified. Say again, confirmed target down. Target NEUTRLIZD. TORESGOTHIM, holy, SHE got HIM. Through multiple observation points, confirmation flooded in. Drone footage. Intercepted enemy communications erupting in chaos and panic. Thermal imaging showing the heat signature going still. Commander was dead. Killed by a shot that traveled 3,847 meters. A shot that took 8.4 seconds. A shot that everyone said was impossible. Maya exhaled, 8 seconds of held breath releasing in a rush that left her shaking. Her hands trembled, her vision blurred. The rifle suddenly weighed 1,000 pounds. Was screaming into the radio. Confirmed kill, 3,847 meters, confirmed. Command's voice stunned. Copy that, unbelievable. Actual confirmed kill at 3,847 meters. TORS, that's the longest recorded combat kill in history. Through the chaos of voices, through the celebration erupting across the frequency, one voice cut through with quiet intensity. TORS, a long pause filled with something Maya couldn't identify, shock, respect, disbelief, maybe all three. That was, I've never, he stopped, started again. Confirmed, visual confirmation from displaced position, target is down, mission complete. No sarcasm, no mockery, just raw, honest acknowledgement. Maya's hands were still shaking as she safed her rifle. The morning sun painted the valley in gold, and somewhere 4 kilometers away, an impossible shot had just rewritten the rules of what snipers believed was possible. Turned to her, his face split by a grin that could have lit the darkness. You did it. You actually did it. Maya looked at her rifle, her mocked, criticized, doubted weapon. The Frankenstein gun that had just made history. She allowed herself the smallest smile. Physics doesn't lie, she whispered. I just had to prove it. 8 seconds had changed everything, the touch down at Fob Atlas as the sun climbed over the mountains. Before the rotors stopped spinning, soldiers were flooding the landing zone. Word had spread like wildfire. The impossible shot, the record kill, the sniper who rewrote history. Maya stepped off the helicopter exhausted, rifle slung across her back, and walked into a wall of sound. Cheering. Applause. Operators she'd never met were shaking their heads in disbelief, trying to comprehend mathematics made flesh. Colonel Hayes pushed through the crowd, hand extended. Staff Sergeant TORS, hell of a shot. Thank you, sir. 3,847 meters confirmed by multiple sources. Drone footage. Enemy communications went berserk. Intelligence is calling it the single most significant kill of the year. He shook his head. I authorized that contingency position thinking we'd never use it. I was wrong. You were right. Behind him's team emerged from their helicopter, dusty, battered from their firefight, but alive. They stared at Maya with expressions ranging from shock to admiration. Stepped forward last. He looked like he'd aged a decade in 6 hours. Dirt caked his face, a fresh bandage wrapped his forearm, exhaustion carved into every line of his features. But his eyes were clear, honest, stripped of the arrogance that had defined him. The crowd sensed something happening and fell silent. TORS, his voice was quiet, meant only for her, but in the silence everyone heard. Can we talk alone? They walked away from the crowd, past the operations center, to a quiet corner near the perimeter wall where dust devils danced in the morning heat. Stared at the mountains for a long moment before speaking. I was wrong. The words came hard, forced through pride that didn't want to bend but had no choice. About your rifle, about your methods, about you. He turned to face her. I've been doing this for 12 years, 17 confirmed kills. I thought that meant I knew everything, that there was only one way to be a sniper, my way. Maya said nothing, letting him work through it. When that enemy patrol compromised our position, when everything went to hell and I couldn't take the shot, he shook his head. I've never felt that helpless, and then you... He stopped, something like wonder crossing his face. 3,847 meters in combat conditions, moving target. I watched through my scope. I saw the impact, and I still don't believe it's possible. It wasn't possible, Maya said quietly, until someone did the math. Laughed, genuine, without bitterness. The math, Jesus, you kept trying to tell me and I wouldn't listen. He looked at her rifle. I called it a Frankenstein gun, a toy, a science project, and it just made the longest confirmed kill in recorded military history. The rifle is just a tool. The calculations made the difference. No, his voice was firm. You made the difference, your preparation, your dedication, your refusal to accept what everyone else called impossible. He extended his hand. I'm sorry for the mockery, the doubt, for being too proud to see that maybe, just maybe, the old ways aren't the only ways. Maya gripped his hand firmly. You weren't wrong to question, you were wrong to stop listening. Teach me? The words came out like a confession. Teach us, all of us. That shot changes everything we thought we knew about long-range engagement. I want to learn, the team wants to learn. Even the Frankenstein gun stuff. A genuine smile crossed his weathered face. Especially that. 3 weeks later, FOB Atlas's briefing room was packed. Every sniper, every spotter, every operator who'd ever squeezed a trigger sat listening as Maya walked them through the mathematics of extreme long-range shooting. Ballistic coefficients, wind reading, temperature compensation, calculations. Sat in the front row, taking notes like a student, asking questions without ego, learning with the humility of someone who'd seen the impossible become real. On the wall behind Maya hung her rifle, mounted with a brass plaque that read, SSG Maya Tors, 3,847-meter confirmed kill. The impossible is just math we haven't done yet. Underneath, someone had added in smaller letters, never mock what you don't understand. After the briefing, approached with a grin. 3 more units are requesting you for training, words spreading through the entire military. Everyone wants to learn the Tors method. Maya packed up her charts and equations, her movements practiced, efficient. Tell them the method is simple, calculate everything, trust the math, take the shot. And if they doubt it's possible... She looked at her rifle on the wall, no longer mocked, no longer questioned, now a symbol of what dedication and precision could achieve. Then we'll show them, she said, just like we showed. Outside, the Afghan sun beat down on the mountains where impossible shots were born. Inside, soldiers who once relied only on instinct now studied physics. Teams that once mocked modifications now requested them. And a rifle that was once called a toy was now called legendary. Maya Tors walked across the base, no longer the outsider, no longer the doubted. Just another operator, one who'd proven that sometimes the longest journey isn't measured in meters. It's measured in the distance between mockery and respect. And that distance was exactly 3,847 meters. The end.